like just insulting each other, but they're both master impressionists. So from time to time, they'll just get in a fight over like who's got the better Michael Caine impersonation or something like that.
No,
I don't know, it really
I've
tickles
never
my
even
funny.
heard of them. And I love British TV. You know, I keep asking Debbie, I said, let's get, what is it, BritBox?
Yes.
Oh gosh, I just love
all that stuff is great.
You know, British mysteries and murder mysteries and all. They just do such a great job with that.
There is something to, and it is true, like the stereotype that Americans are so entertained the second we hear that British accent.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
In a pinch, even an Aussie accent will do.
Yeah.
Right. You know, just
Or
Irish,
South African.
You know. Scottish is nice. You have to have subtitles when you use
You
Scottish.
do.
Yeah.
Man, they're sometimes you can get. I've been to Scotland a number of times. I love it, and
Beautiful country.
that's where my people are from. But
Yes.
they get to talking, and sometimes you just think, is this English or what? What are you saying? I
Yeah.
have no clue.
Well, they said there was one Scottish actor. He had the famous tweet that he said the accent is just a joke. We only do it when foreigners are around.
I don't know
thought that was
about
pretty
that.
funny because it really is. It really is. It makes you wonder: is this actually the English language?
Well, some of them do have such a thick accent. Then others, it's kind of mild.
But you joke about that. Just obviously, you're from South Carolina. You joke about that when you have to travel. Like some people, they won't understand the things you say, which just seems strange to me.
I had a guy that, just yesterday or day before who was commenting about my preaching, and he was talking about the thick South Carolina accent, and then the colloquialisms, from the South, that kind of thing. So people say something to me quite often about my accent.
I think a lot about, obviously I'm a native English speaker or a native American speaker. Think about that one for a while, because the English say that we don't speak English, we speak American, but whatever. Yeah. There's so much that comes with that. Like, God has designed our brains to be so adaptable and to go with these expectations. Like, I don't know that I've heard, like whether it's South Carolina, Mississippi, North Carolina, obviously the Midwest, you can hear all these different accents and you can just understand people. Mm-hmm. But the person who's not a native English speaker, man, they might really, really struggle with South Carolina or maybe like a New Orleans kind of. And I just think that's because I saw all that happen when I was living in China. Because, I would learn, I would be sitting there in the classroom and they would say something like, 你说什么, which means, what did you say? You have to say that a lot. What did you say? 你说什么? And you have to, and then I go out on the street, but I'm in the Sichuan province, and they'll be like, 你说啥子吧? Which is like the same meaning, but it was a completely different accent. And I was like, I have a new appreciation for anyone that comes into America and has to deal with everything that we throw at them.
Yeah, I was reading an article the other day that was talking about the Southern accent, and they said if you record the Southern accent and you speed it up,
Irish?
it becomes more like a British.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, especially the old South where they drop the R a lot.
Right.
Yeah, somebody did some kind of academic journal paper on the way that people in Southern Maryland would talk, because I can't even imitate it. It's a very, very distinct way of talking.
It's because when I was in Virginia, they had it. You don't have the house, you have the hoose.
Yes, right.
Go
all that stuff.
about the hoose.
Yes, that's right.
That kind of thing. Yeah, because there were those up in Virginia that I got tickled at in my first church because of that. They had, I don't know what you call it, that back bay.
Well, and it was so unique that they tried to, these speech pathologists, they tried to research it, and I can't remember where they traced it to, but it was because a particular group of people had immigrated, I think from a particular place in Ireland. And because of that, just at the right place at the right time. And so this group of people, is it Potomac? I can't remember where it is. And they, and hence the Merlin accent was born.
Yeah. And they would say things like, well, he wasn't very old when he did that.
Right. Right. Yeah,
these are educated people. But it was just that, and it was there along the coast, and in Virginia.
Well, that gets into a different thing, like the educated versus the non-educated, because language is mob rule, right?
Uh-huh.
Like when people, we joke about the whole Urban Dictionary, but a lot of times the Urban Dictionary will precede the Webster's Dictionary. Eventually these things will get added. So I think it's just an interesting sociological exercise to trace. Okay, well, this is when different parts of English were formalized.
Right.
And then that goes into education. Like, well, I'm going to follow all the rules,
Yeah.
And then so now like there's almost this elitism that comes. I was homeschooled. I was the king of the grammar elites for a while. I'd be like, why don't you talk? But the truth is, like, you kind of sound like a crazy person if you're trying to, like, if it's saying like I'm going to go over there.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm going to go over there. Well, that's what everybody says, gonna. Like, that's just
Yeah.
what you say. If you don't say that, people, what are you, a robot or something? Are you secretly AI? What's going on behind your eyes? But
Well, that's where Alexander Cruden got his famous name,
exactly
Alexander the Corrector.
And he went crazy.
Went crazy.
Talked about him last
Lost
week.
his mind. Yeah. I love that. I'm reading the book, but I'm reading so many books right now, and I go and I grab that and I read that for a little while, and then I go back and grab this, read that for a little while. And my wife says, I can't. How do you keep this stuff straight in your head? I said, that's what you call being ADD.
Yeah, ADD is a heavy cross to bear.
Yeah.
So, are you anything else that you're liking reading right now? Have you been able to read? Well
I'm
now?
reading this new biography that's out on Lincoln is excellent.
That's a long one, right?
Yeah, and I'm reading Saints and Sinners. I think that's what it is. It's kind of an unusual look at Christian history, and I'm in the Crusades right now, and they're talking about all of the horrible things that Christians did, and this guy's looking at it from that perspective. The unvarnished kind of. So I'm reading that. I'm trying to finish up Victor Davis Hanson's book, The End of All Things.
Oh, wow.
Alexander Cruden, reading him, and I just picked up Jimmy Scroggins' book on Three Circle Parenting, which is that's a good book.
Yeah, I need to read.
That is an excellent book. So because I'm getting ready to do this thing on wives, husbands, and children.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
I think the church history thing is really. I meant to talk to you about this because I was listening to a church history thing. I was trying to research a little bit of like what led to the theological concept of dispensationalism. I thought that was really interesting. And along the way, the guy.
Go back to Darby.
Yes, yeah, he factors in heavily. But before him, and you already
Clarence
know about
Larkin.
that he was in there as well. You already know all this, but he mentions a lot of Anabaptist names. But what I had not heard before is how many of these guys they call Anabaptist, but they were just straight crazy.
Yes.
I did not realize that there's
They
this
lump
whole
them
genre.
all. They lump them all in. It's just like a lot of people will come and they talk about Baptists. Well, in all honesty, we know what they're talking about, but you have to say, all right, you've got to separate it out now and tell us which Baptist group are you talking about.
Well, and that was my critique of this guy, because he was just like, he basically was forming this argument that all Anabaptists were bad and had horrible theology, and I was like, that's not
99% of the way historians view Anabaptists, and it is so incorrect. The Swiss, the South German, the Austrian Anabaptists were very sane, very theological. Even Hubmaier, who was the only Anabaptist theologian, did not believe in passivity the way you think, well, none of them would do. No, in fact, he wrote a pamphlet on the sword, saying why there are times when you must pick up arms, why you must bear arms. That was one of the problems that they had. But then you had others, like Munster and Thomas Munster and the Melchiorites. And all of that. They came some really bizarre stuff.
Well, the strange part to me was how much it sounds like the 20th century.
Yeah.
When you had so many guys that would say, no, the end is nigh, and we've got to usher in the new kingdom of God. All these other kingdoms are wrong. They were saying the exact same thing.
Yeah. In the city of Munster.
That was the worst one,
of course, they took the city over and they fought, to keep
so
it.
many
And
people.
they just did bizarre. They had polygamous marriages.
That's
They
right.
would
It was
run around the
wild.
streets naked,
Yeah.
you know, which you wonder, what were they smoking? Were they smoking something? Anyway,
I don't know what they were doing. I
But
mean, it's
they
a
were
cult.
crazy.
It's really a cult.
It
Is what it
was.
was. So yeah, I was frustrated by that because I felt like, you know, obviously, I'm not going to leave something in the YouTube comments. The guy was fiercely academic, but he was painting this picture as if all of it was bad and none of it led to anything good. And like you were saying, it reminds me of a few years ago. Remember when we're just trying to be Southern Baptist, hold to scriptural fidelity, all this, and then in the media we get lumped in with the Westboro Baptist people.
Oh, yeah.
They're just like so bigoted and hateful to everyone, and we're like,
Yeah,
come
they
on,
picketed
guys.
me.
I believe
They
it.
picketed me when I was in Dallas. They picketed me when I was in Jacksonville.
Is that right?
Yeah. I keep waiting for them to show up here.
Yeah. I guess consider
but-
that your invitation. I don't know. That's weird.
But anyway, they are a little on the scary side.
I guess I brought all that up to say it is amazing to me how complex history is. I know that this is one of your life pursuits, one of the reasons you love history, but it just keeps blowing my mind.
It is. Well, that's a good book. You would enjoy that. It would. You probably.
Which book?
It's called Sinners and Saints.
Okay.
Or Saints and Sinners, one or the other.
Yeah, I'll have to put it
And
in.
it's kind of an unvarnished, raw look at how Christians through the years have really made some bad decisions.
It is a shame. Well, and that's the thing. We have to learn from history,
Yeah.
or else we're doomed to
Yeah.
repeat
Yeah.
it. I'll have to put that one in the queue. I'm doing a lot of apologetics reading right now. Just
Wow.
had to order some new because this is the class I'm taking.
That's
in
what
the
you're
fall.
taking? Good.
Apologetic preaching.
Oh, good, good. Well, please show me your book list on that.
Yeah, I will.
I'll
Yeah.
look and buy some and read some too.
Yeah, it's some recent stuff. I'm interested. So he put the
That's kind of a thing right now.
doing the recent
Yeah,
stuff.
and when you're working up, that's the good thing about working on a doctorate is that you keep up with the latest things
Oh,
that are
okay.
going.
Got it.
So, apologetic preaching right now is kind of big.
I think the oldest one he put on there is "Reason for God" by Keller.
Yeah.
Which, I read that one.
Which
years
is
ago.
excellent.
It is good.
In fact, I'm fixing to buy it for a young man that I'm kind of mentoring a
Okay,
little bit.
good. I'm looking forward to rereading it. I kind of need that.
It is good. It is a very
injection.
good book. And I like Tim Keller, but I keep in mind Keller leans a lot more towards social ministry than I do. But I look at his context. He was in the city of New
Yeah.
York, and I can understand. I'm not a critic of Tim Keller. I wouldn't embrace everything that Keller embraced, but I can learn from him. There's an awful lot of good
Oh, of
that is
course.
there. So,
Well, that's another really interesting exercise. Is just considering how everyone develops the way they do. You know, just the how we're nurtured, mentored. What our motivations are, and that's true of anybody that has their name stamped on a book. Like it's part of them is in there. Anyway, I'm just grateful that Keller finished well. It seems like it's just increasingly rare these days, at least from
it is.
what we read
It is.
about out
You're
there.
exactly right.
Hey, are you feeling okay? Yesterday was
Pretty
weird.
good. Yeah, it was weird. I don't know what we've had, but this is going on 3 weeks.
You can go back to the doc.
Gonna have another test, I think,
Okay.
today. So, I don't know. They start out with it. Maybe it's a virus, but we think it must have been something like salmonella or
Oh, good
some
gracious.
kind of something like that. I don't know, but anyway. Because like today, I feel great right now, but I might wake up tomorrow morning and be so nauseated with terrible headache, and feel so sick. You think like today, hey, I think I'm over. No,
Yeah, it comes back.
it comes back. It comes roaring back, it's weird.
I still remember, now it was like 7 years ago when I had, I guess it was the flu, even though I tested negative, and it was like 3 weeks long. Joanna even remembers that. Did you have that too? Did we go like back to back?
I don't remember if it was that scenario, but there was something where we both got sick
Yeah.
multiple times.
Probably because we had to use the same microphone.
I'm being thrown off. You're making eye contact.
That's right. You have to get out of Pastor's field of view.
Y'all would have
Mike,
had
clear
to have
the
heard
field
the
of view.
conversation. with her husband, who is what is he, a producer, director?
He's everything.
He does all of the
Cinematographer,
above.
grip,
He's talking about
everything.
working with these Hollywood stars who say, all of the people on the set, you cannot be in my field of view. You know,
That's right.
Don't make eye contact with the actor.
Well, you guys don't know this, but Pastor and I actually, we're so at odds with each other, we have to film this podcast separately. He's just talking to a green screen, and so
gosh.
they put it together. Think about that.
I
Have you seen
doubt
us in
that
the
there's
same
a
place?
pastor and a monster of music anywhere out there that gets along as well as we do.
Praise the Lord for that. Well, I was wondering yesterday, because when you said you were sick, I was like, do you really not like bluegrass music that much?
Oh,
You're
no,
just
no,
gonna
I
throw
loved
up
it.
on
In
stage?
fact, I was walking down, I hated that both times I missed the whole of the opening song, the hymn.
Victory in Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, I did, but I felt so lousy yesterday morning.
I'm sorry about that.
But anyway,
Well, yeah, so it was a weird day, but you made it all the way through the message. We can praise the Lord for that. You were even able to, with the miracle of the body and blood of Christ. We don't believe in transubstantiation, don't email me.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
miracle of the body and blood of Christ, you were able to take that with no
I
gastronomic
went
distress.
home. Man, I was sopping wet. Do you get wet up there?
Oh my gosh, of course
I
I
was
do.
sopping wet when I walked out of there. Debbie said, "Is that because you don't feel good or you're just hot?" I said, "I don't know. Maybe a little of both."
This is why I have to wear so many layers. So
Yeah,
people
so
won't
I just
see it.
went home and I was out of it.
Yeah.
I got that wringing wet shirt off of me and I was gone.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
And a sad week last week because
Yeah.
the great old historic auditorium at First Baptist burned to the ground.
I forgot to bring that up. That is so now. I guess for clarity, because I had to read on this. That's not their current main worship gathering spot.
No, they've got a new, I've not been in it. I was walking over to it and got stopped by people about 3-4 weeks ago when I was back there. I was in the old auditorium about 4 weeks ago.
The historic one.
Yes,
Okay.
the one that just burned down, doing a funeral of Michael Signoretto. And when I walked out, of course, they were having a big family gathering there in the
Yeah.
foyer, in the building that I built, that I had planned and started building before I left there. And I was going over to just look at the new auditorium because I'd never seen it. And people caught me and I never got over there. But they do. They have a really state-of-the-art.
So they built that since you were there. So when
Yes.
you were preaching, it was in the old auditorium?
Yes, I preached.
Okay,
I
didn't know
preached
that.
my 7 years in the old auditorium.
Okay, with W.A. Criswell sitting right
He
behind
sat
you?
back there at least the first 3, maybe 4 years that I was there.
I still can't believe that. You just sharing that brief history, the fact that they had two pastors basically go 50
For
years
100
and 50
years. Yeah.
What
Truett was
other
there
church?
47, and Criswell was there for 53, 50, something like that. Anyway, they came to me. You know, there had been all of that big hullabaloo with Dr. Gregory, and when he left, and
Right.
Dr. Criswell, and you know, are you going to let somebody else be pastor? Anyway,
it
it
was
went
tough.
back and forth like that. Well, the church had. I'm probably telling something I don't need to tell, but it was not bad. It didn't end up bad. They said, okay, we're going to pay him X number of dollars until his 50th anniversary. Well, you know, he had his 50th, and they came to me and they said, "The preacher, he's been here now for 50 years. What are we going to do about his salary?" I said, "You're going to leave it alone."
Yeah, that's
I said,
absolutely
"Just leave
right.
it alone.
Right.
He's in his 90s. He can't be here that much longer. We're not going to do one thing. You
That's
just
very
keep
wise.
doing what we're doing, and nothing is going to." And of course, he did. And I loved Dr. Criswell, and I think he loved me. We got along famously together. He would call me every day.
I love hearing about those calls.
"Oh, doctor, where are you?" "Dr. Criswell, I'm here in the office. Is there any little thing I can do for you today?" "Yeah, you can go pick up my dry cleaning."
Yeah, would you mind doing that, sir?
"No, Dr. Criswell, there's not a thing. You're so kind. Thank you." And I'd go see him at least once a week, sometimes, you know, a little more than that. I just loved to be around him. I loved him. He was unique in so many ways. He was a man who was so genius and so unassuming at the same time. You know, he could have been anything, but He was so naive at the same time, but fascinating.
Almost
guy.
like had a childlike nature
He
to
did.
him.
He did.
Yeah.
And a childlike curiosity.
Keeps you young.
Which I thought to myself, that's how you keep your mind
Right.
growing and learning, is constantly be curious. Things just, for me, I am so curious about things like history and people and language and names. Just keep that curiosity about you.
I'm going to do my best. I think it is a beautiful thing what we can learn from those people who are aged. You know, like there's so many things that I've heard at funerals that have stuck with me. Even people that I didn't know well. You know, I remember when it's just clear as a bell to me when Pastor Chuck was doing the eulogy for Big Jim. This got to be 5-6 years ago, and he talked about how whenever you talked to Jim, you were just 100% certain you were his best friend.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, man, because that hits me hard, because I get so scattered, you know. But I've always, because of that moment, I really try to just focus on people when I'm talking to them. I fail all the time. So apologies if I've ever brushed past you on Sunday morning and you wanted to talk.
He does it to me all the time.
It's usually because I'm delivering some Hebrew translations to Pastor and I can't be bothered.
That's what
It's
he's
hot
doing.
off the press.
That's exactly what he's doing.
Oh, boy. But you sent me the video of Criswell's funeral, the opening
Yeah,
hymn.
yeah. Was that not magnificent?
That was great. The horn fanfare at the
Oh, it
beginning.
was just really. I sent it because the minister of music that was there sent it out, and you know, this was the opening song. The family came into the, and I
Yeah.
can't even think. It was not.
Bound for the Promised
I'm
Land.
bound for the promised land.
Yeah.
Yeah. All I could think was on Jordan's stormy banks I stand.
Well, that's still proper. A lot of hymns have the
yeah.
first lines
I'm
there.
bound for the promised land, and I just thought that sounded so great. I hadn't heard that old hymn since then. I don't guess.
I didn't learn that hymn until it was Indelible Grace did it. That the band out of Nashville. And they're-
Indelible grace.
Yeah, they call it Indelible Grace. Yeah, it was Kevin Twitt that started that. It came out of the Reformed University Fellowship in Nashville, and I was such an idiot in college that I never even went to any of those gatherings or saw those guys. They were making great
Yeah.
music at the time, but I was playing
Yeah.
Halo the whole time. I'm still mad about that. Go ahead.
No, I just appreciate a lot of those young Reformed guys' music. I do. It's very worshipful, and I like it.
I was jamming out with a different group, similar.
Jamming?
I was jamming.
Be
I
ja-
was
you be
jamming.
jamming.
I was jamming yesterday in the afternoon with the new Sovereign Grace album. I can't even remember what the album's called. Oh, it's called Knowing God because
Is it good?
It's really excellent.
Is
yeah.
it really?
Well, and one of those songs we used yesterday was from it, to help us see Christ, like helping people understand the role of the Holy Spirit. I
You know,
think
when
that's so
Trey was
helpful.
there in at Southern
Yeah.
in Louisville, he went to Sovereign Grace for a
Yeah.
while.
Why would you
And
not?
he loved it. He enjoyed it. Who's the music guy that was there? What's his name?
Bob Coughlin.
Yes.
And he did the pastors' conference.
Yeah, he did the pastors' conference a couple of times. And I really enjoyed him. I really enjoyed just who he was, getting to know him. But loved so much his just sitting down at the piano. I love it when a guy can sit down at the piano and just lead worship. I wish I could do that.
What you want me to give you some
No,
lessons? It'll only
no,
take like
I
30,
can't.
40 minutes.
No,
You'll figure it
yeah,
out.
no, I can't do it. But I loved it. I love that.
Coughlin's another one of those guys that has that a beautiful childlike energy to him. You know, and a curiosity, like the teachability. It's just I even because I got to go meet him. I told you this whole story.
He's sweet.
And I was just like, how do
Yeah.
you maintain this? And he was just like, just surround myself with young people and always asking questions. You know, a lot of times don't. It's like this weird dance of like times when you choose not to trust your preferences, but you ask somebody else. You know, but then also recognizing that you have wisdom. That it's, you know, it's one of those things. Hopefully, I'll understand it when I'm in my 60s, like
When
you
when
illustrious
yeah.
gentleman.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe
That's us.
Maybe 30
Illustrious.
years from now, I'll finally get it. Well, that's all our time today.
Hope y'all enjoyed that text we looked at, and I have no idea why we got off on all this today.
Well, it's what you were saying. We're just chatting. This is virtually identical to the way it would look like if the camera wasn't rolling.
That's true.
These are the phone conversations we have sometimes, and sometimes I'm like, wow, man, I wish we would have had somebody recording this. This is too good. Anything you want to hit us with some one-shots?
The only thing is, he closes out this section here in chapter 5 about midway with be subject to one another in the fear of Christ. Well,
Right.
that is going to become
Yes.
the major building block of the home that he turns to beginning in verse 22 of subjection there, of being subject to others, to husbands and wives and children and all. But we'll look at
So-
that. Lord willing, this Sunday.
You going to step on any landmines? You step on any toes?
No, but let me say that maybe cautiously, parents, if you're going to have real young children in there, we may be talking about husband-wife relationships. I try to do it in a dignified
Okay, I understand.
way. But if you've not talked to your child about that, maybe it's best to leave them in the, I don't know, time up downstairs in the bathroom or something. I don't know what.
Yeah, that would be way superior.
They've got classes and all down there, but
Two things. Oh, sorry.
nothing for you to be fearful about. But
Yeah, I would say two things from yesterday that I just, and everyone should watch the message if you haven't already. One, I loved your thought about how the Lord doesn't call us to run, He calls us to walk.
Yes.
Which, I mean, that was just helpful. Discipleship has been described as like a long obedience in one direction. So I just thought that was a helpful word. And then the other thing, we're not going to have time to dig all the way into this, but I really appreciated you calling out how the whole "do not be drunk with wine" thing, like that wasn't something about like your use of alcohol, but talking about like the filling of the Spirit.
It's
I really appreciated
completely
that.
out of the context, and you miss the fact you have to take Scripture and understand what is the genre here. What is he doing here?
Yeah.
Well, that was an analogy, and so to take that and to use is really, I declared yesterday that logically speaking, that's a fallacy, because that's not at all what is being. That's not the concern of his. He's using it as an illustration. So.
But the beauty, in that light, it just shows the beauty of what the Spirit is able to do.
Yes, yeah.
In our lives. So I thought that was really helpful.
Yeah, to make a rule out of that is kind of crazy. You miss the point of what he's doing.
Well, thanks, brother, for being a student of the Word. We're going to continue to pray that you won't feel nauseous, which as long as you avoid me the rest of the week, I imagine you'll feel great. Hey, we're going to see you guys soon. Midweek is coming back on August the 21st with, and we're starting with a prayer meeting. I'm excited about that. But we'll see you guys on Sunday. Say goodbye, Pastor.
Goodbye, Pastor. I tried to give